What if every single thing around you, this screen, the chair you're sitting on, even the way your life has unfolded, has been shaped not by random chance, but by the way you look at it? Imagine reality as a fluid, ever-changing mist that hardens into form the moment your gaze touches it. The concept might sound like something out of a sci-fi movie, but science has something to say about it. You may never believe what I'm about to say next, but the mere act of observing reality changes it literally. But before we dive deeper into this sign, I have a small request. If you're captivated by this moment, give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. It's completely free, takes only a second, and ensures you won't miss what happens next. Now lean in, because we're going into a realm where seeing isn't believing. Believing is what allows you to see. You walk into a dark room and your hand instinctively reaches for the switch. The light comes on, not because it decided to, but because you caused it. That's the world you know. But in the quantum realm, things don't quite work that way. The lights don't turn on because of a switch. They turn on if you believe the room should be illuminated. Let me explain. In quantum physics, there's this mysterious principle called the observer effect. Essentially, it tells us that particles, tiny units that make up everything in our universe, don't settle into a defined state until they're being observed. A photon, for instance, might behave like a wave until someone observes it, then it chooses to behave like a particle. It's as if reality holds its breath, waiting for you to look before it decides what it wants to be. Sounds crazy, it gets better. Picture yourself as the observer. Your very act of paying attention, your awareness pulls invisible potentials out of the quantum field and snaps them into the real. That relationship isn't just scientific, it's deeply spiritual. And it explains why so many mystics, sages, and modern spiritual teachers keep reminding us, you create your own reality. I once asked a monk in Ladakh why he would sit in meditation for hours on a rock staring at the sky. He told me, because when I observe the silence long enough, it speaks back to me in form. At first, I laughed quietly at the poetic flair. But after delving into the observer effect, I realized he wasn't being poetic. He was being literal. You begin to see the outlines of this mystery in everyday life. Have you ever noticed how people treat you differently based on how you view yourself? The moment you decide you're worthy, suddenly others treat you like you are. You feel lighter, more respected, more visible. The shift wasn't in them, it was in your lens. The shift in observation changed the outcomes. That's the observer effect in the wild, right in your ordinary day. And here's the kicker. This isn't just about changing thoughts. This is about shifting perception so deeply that the universe cannot help but respond. It's kind of like quantum karaoke. You pick the song, the universe sings with you, but only after you choose the melody. This also explains why affirmations sometimes work and sometimes fall flat. If you're saying, I am abundant, while inwardly observing a life of lack, the quantum field reads the observation, not the words. You can't fake your way into a new reality. You have to see it as true before it becomes true. So the real question becomes, what are you observing right now? What version of your life is being solidified each time you look at your circumstances and draw a conclusion? Because in a very real way, your gaze is a spell-casting shape onto the formless clay of potential. I remember standing in front of my bathroom mirror years ago, devastated, stuck, broke. I looked into my own eyes, and instead of seeing failure, I decided to observe potential. Not because anything had changed, but because I had to choose. Weeks later, opportunities began appearing like quantum particles deciding to become visible. Coincidence? Not likely. The observer effect is the meeting point between science and mysticism. It's not about being spiritual or skeptical. It's about realizing that consciousness, your attention, is an active participant in reality. And if all of this feels overwhelming good, that means the world as you know it is bending. Because the truth is, you've been reshaping reality your entire life. Now, imagine what happens when you do it on purpose. Let's go back farther than your memories, beyond your education, into the microcosmic theater, where reality performs its strangest acts. You're not going to believe how a tiny electron, a subatomic particle so small it defies measurement, has been whispering secrets about your life this whole time. It all started with a deceptively simple experiment, the double-slit experiment. Scientists fired electrons one by one at a screen through two slits. Now, if electrons behaved like solid particles, they should have formed two neat lines on the screen behind the slits. But instead, they created an interference pattern as if they were waves overlapping, not particles at all. That meant each electron in some way went through both slits simultaneously. Wait, what things got even weirder when scientists decided to observe the process. The moment they placed a measuring device to watch which slit the electron passed through, the interference pattern vanished. Just by observing, they had collapsed its behavior into that of a single definite particle. The act of watching changed the outcome. Think about that for a second. These electrons didn't just respond to being observed. They fundamentally became something else because they were being watched. Now let me ask you, what happens when you are observed? When someone watches you, don't you act a little differently, stand a little taller, speak more carefully, smile when you normally wouldn't? We're not just psychologically affected by being watched, we're energetically altered. I call this quantum self-reflection. Whether you're aware of it or not, your life is performing the double slit experiment every single day. Infinite possibilities stretch before you like a set of slits in the fabric of time. And your focused awareness, your observation, chooses which one becomes real. Here's where it gets even more deliciously eerie. Some researchers have taken the double slit concept into the realm of human consciousness. They've experimented with whether people can affect quantum particles just by thinking. In several studies, participants were able to influence the behavior of particles without touching or even directly observing them, just focusing intention. Think about that next time you set an intention at 11:11. This is why spiritual practices like visualization, mantra, and meditation are not just rituals, they are technologies. Tools to align the observer you with a desired version of reality. You're not praying to something outside of you. You're programming the field with your perception. I remember once while leading a silent retreat, one participant approached me with eyes wide open after an hour of breathwork. I saw myself in third person, she said. I watched my life like a movie, and I could feel that just observing it differently made me feel free. I nodded and whispered, "You just step between the slits." Because the truth is, you're not just the observed, you're also the observer. And in quantum mechanics, that makes you a co-creator. The world looks back because you looked first. Have you ever experienced a day where things went perfectly, like the universe had cued everything in your favor? The parking spot opened up the song you needed, played at just the right time the call came, when you were thinking of that person. That's not chance. That's a series of particles responding to your frequency of observation. Of course, the opposite is also true. Have you had a week where everything just broke? No matter what you did, it felt like the universe had it out for you. That too may be a cascade of observations reinforced by negative emotion, collapsing possibility into limitation. Now imagine this. What if your entire life is one massive quantum field of potential slits everywhere, each one leading to a different outcome? The way you look at life, not just see but perceive, determines which slit opens. It's not philosophy anymore. It's physics. And here's a fun idea. Maybe that's why when someone says, "Don't look at it like that," they're not just giving advice, they're whispering a quantum truth. One night while meditating under the stars in Sedona, I felt something watching me, not a being, but the sky itself. A sensation that I was part of some vast observer-observed relationship. I laughed. "I see you," I whispered. And just then, a shooting star streaked across the sky. Coincidence or something else choosing to become visible? Because I decided to see. In this grand experiment called life, you are both the scientist and the subject, the lens and the landscape. Every thought is a measurement. Every belief is a slit. Every observation collapses an infinite wave of possibilities into one lived truth. So the next time you find yourself asking, "Why is this happening to me?" pause. Ask instead, "What have I been observing?" Because in this world, your gaze holds gravity. Close your eyes for a moment, not in fear, but in reverence. Behind those eyelids isn't darkness. It's a theater where perception sculpts the world. If the observer effect is the stage, then your inner vision is the director. And the most astonishing twist, this director doesn't just rearrange scenes, it rewrites the script entirely. Welcome to the territory of the inner eye, the eye that sees without seeing. You've heard the phrase before? Change your thoughts, change your life. But here's what most people miss. Thoughts are only the first step. Perception is deeper. It's not just what you think. It's how you hold what you think, the emotional tone, the frequency, the resonance behind the thought. Imagine holding a rose in your hand. One person sees beauty, another sees danger. One sees romance, another sees decay. The rose hasn't changed, only the perception of it has. And yet those perceptions will lead to radically different experiences of the same object. Reality isn't objective, it's responsive. A quantum physicist once described the universe as a probability cloud of potential outcomes. But what collapses that cloud into a concrete reality perception? The act of seeing not only selects a version, it amplifies it. It brings the chosen truth into sharper focus until everything else fades into the background. That's how the inner eye, your inner observing eye, operates. Quietly, constantly, creatively. This is why ancient mystics closed their physical eyes to see, not to shut out the world, but to look into the code that runs underneath it. And in modern psychology, this inner sight is called the subconscious framework, a set of unspoken filters through which all of life is interpreted. Here's where it gets fascinating. Let's say you believe even subtly that people can't be trusted. Without realizing it, you begin to observe life through that lens. You interpret neutral actions as betrayals, kind gestures as manipulation. And what happens? Your experience begins to reflect exactly that belief. Not because it's true, but because you've observed the world into confirming it. That's perception as a reality-generating mechanism. It's not magic, it's not placebo, it's not even wishful thinking, it's quantum alignment. I once coached a woman who constantly experienced rejection from jobs, relationships, even friendships. "Why is the world so harsh to me?" she asked. I asked her to describe how she saw herself in a crowded room. She replied like, "I don't belong." That was the key. Her perception was broadcasting a frequency of exclusion. The world, just like a particle being watched, responded accordingly. The fix: we didn't change her resume. We changed her lens. Over 3 weeks, we practiced perceptual reprogramming, a process of deliberately observing herself as belonging, worthy, magnetic. And within a month, she was offered a position she hadn't even applied for by someone who said, "I felt drawn to reach out to you." That's not coincidence. That's the observer shifting the observed. Now let's talk about emotions, because they're the fuel behind your lens. Thoughts without emotional charge are weak observers. They barely ripple the quantum field. But thoughts charged with intense emotion, gratitude, awe, love are like magnifying glasses. They supercharge your perception, amplifying your ability to shape reality. That's why people say things like, "feel it real" when manifesting. They're echoing a fundamental truth: emotion is perception in motion. On the flip side, fear, shame, or guilt also supercharge reality, but toward what you don't want. That's why learning to regulate your inner state is not just for emotional well-being, it's for energetic accuracy. Here's a fun practice I use: the mirror test. Every morning I stand before the mirror and observe myself with intention. Not just to groom, but to declare, "This is who I am today. This is who I see." Some days I see power, some days I see exhaustion. But the moment I choose what I want to see and feel into it, something shifts. Try it. Look at yourself and hold a perception long enough for the mirror to reflect back something new. Because here's the deepest secret: the universe is a mirror. It doesn't show you what you want, it shows you what you see. And just like light bends when it passes through a lens, reality bends when it passes through you. Your job is to craft the lens with love. So now as you move through today, ask not what the world is showing you, but what you're showing the world through the quiet magnetic pull of perception. Because when you master that eye, the one that sees beyond form, you'll realize something profound. You were never meant to adapt to reality. You were designed to design it. You wake up one morning with a heaviness in your chest. The sky feels a little too gray, your coffee a little too bitter, and everyone seems just a bit more distant than usual. You sigh, not realizing you've already chosen the slit. Your perception has selected a reality. But what if I told you in that exact moment, you could have stepped into another timeline, not metaphorically, not wishfully, but mechanically through the logic of quantum physics? Welcome to the heart of this transformation. Change the lens and you change the line. Specifically the timeline. In the realm of quantum mechanics, time is not fixed. It's not a straight line like the calendar on your wall. Instead, it's a network of branching possibilities all existing simultaneously. Physicists refer to this as the many worlds interpretation, an idea that every potential outcome of a decision exists in its own parallel reality. Here's where it gets truly mystical and thrilling. You are not moving through time. Time is moving through you, and depending on your perception, you lock into a version of it. That version, it's called a timeline. Let's say you're experiencing loss, fear, or stagnation. In that moment, there also exists a parallel version of you who is healing, courageous, and inspired. The bridge between those versions isn't action, it's perception. Here's why. Perception determines your emotional frequency. That frequency sends out an electromagnetic field, real, measurable, not abstract. The heart, for instance, emits a magnetic field 5,000 times stronger than the brain. Your energetic field is like a radio dial tuning into a specific timeline out of the quantum soup of endless possibilities. This isn't spiritual fluff, it's vibrational mechanics. You don't need to wait years to change your life. You need to change your state of observation and stay there long enough for reality to reconfigure itself around your new signal. I remember once standing on a beach after a major career setback, waves crashing in the distance, self-doubt screaming louder than the wind. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and instead of asking, "Why me?" I asked which version of me would be grateful for this. That question shifted my perception. And in the days that followed, an unexpected invitation to collaborate arrived, a path I wouldn't have seen had I stayed on the old mental frequency. Now let me give you a tool, the shift prompt. Whenever you're faced with a challenge, ask yourself, what else could this mean if I looked at it through the lens of opportunity? This single question begins the process of hopping timelines. Because here's a secret. The you that lives in joy is not someone you become. It's someone you tune into. And this brings us to the power of narrative reselection. Every story you tell yourself is a lens that shapes your reality. If you keep saying, "I always mess things up," you're tuning into a timeline where that belief manifests over and over. Change the narrative to "I'm learning faster each day," and suddenly the path ahead clears. Not magically, mechanically. Because the universe doesn't respond to what's true, it responds to what's observed as true. Now consider this: every day you're surrounded by subtle invitations to shift timelines. A phone call, a song lyric, a random smile. These are not coincidences. They're slits opening, invitations to shift from one version of yourself to another, but only if you're paying attention. A student once told me, "I feel like my life is stuck in a loop." I asked her to describe her morning routine. It was exactly the same every day. Same clothes, same coffee, same complaints. I told her, "You're observing yourself into repetition." So she changed one thing: her morning music. She danced for 5 minutes barefoot every day. 3 weeks later, she texted me, "I feel like I live in a new city even though nothing changed." Everything did change. Her perception of self altered and reality obeyed. And this is the golden key. Time isn't linear, it's observational. And you are the observer with the power to rotate the kaleidoscope of your existence. So if you're waiting for life to shift before you shift your mindset, you're walking backward into a mirror. Instead, shift first and let life adjust itself around your new reflection. Because the slit you're about to walk through, it's not out there. It's already within you. Now that you've grasped the incredible mechanics of observation, perception, and timeline navigation, let's get our hands dirty. You're not here to be a passive listener. You're here to become a quantum participant. It's time to take theory and turn it into practice. Today, I'll guide you through 3 powerful spiritual technologies, rituals, if you will, that use focused observation to reshape your external world. Each one has been refined not only through ancient wisdom, but also under the modern lens of quantum awareness. These are not abstract affirmations. These are intentional, practical, and metaphysically sound acts of energetic authorship. Ritual 1, Quantum Gaze Activation, 5 minutes daily. Start by sitting comfortably with a mirror. Light a single candle, not for ambience, but to signal your conscious mind that ritual has begun. Look into your own eyes, not the surface of your face. This isn't grooming, this is soul communion. Then softly speak, "I am the observer and the creator. I choose the timeline of peace, power, and purpose." Hold your gaze. Let your mind race, your emotions stir. Do not look away. Just observe yourself, not to judge, but to witness. This act is electric. It stabilizes your energy field and calibrates your subconscious lens. You'll begin to notice how others respond differently to you in mere days. Not because they've changed, but because your observation of self has. I've had clients break down crying in the middle of this ritual, not from sadness, but from recognition. I finally saw myself, one said, without filters, without armor. Quantum change always begins in the mirror. Ritual 2, reality recode script, 15 minutes. Take a journal and split a page in half. On the left, write your current perceived reality just as you observe it now. No one listens to me, or I always fall short. Then on the right side, rewrite each line from the observer of the timeline you want to step into. Example left. I'm always overlooked. Right, I radiate clarity and presence. People want to hear me. Read the right column out loud each morning for 7 days. But don't just recite, observe the truth of those words. Imagine a day where each line is already your lived experience. Here's the twist, this isn't brainwashing, it's wave collapse. You are focusing awareness long enough on a version of reality that the field must begin to reflect it. The universe is a faithful servant, but only to the clearest master. Ritual 3, the slit walk active timeline shift. This one is bold and beautifully strange. Once a week, pick a path you've never walked before, a route to the store, a back alley, a forest trail. As you step onto it, say aloud, I walk into a new timeline where my highest self awaits. This isn't just metaphorical. Movement, intention, and unfamiliar environments trigger your brain's neuroplasticity, opening it to new possibilities. More importantly, this act mirrors the quantum principle of superposition. As long as you haven't taken the same steps, all options remain open. During the walk, focus on observing what's different, a leaf, a color, a scent, a stranger's smile. Let those be evidence that you've crossed into something new. Your brain and the quantum field register these micro signals as confirmation of transition. You'll be amazed. I've had people receive job offers, relationship breakthroughs, and deep insights after just one walk, because the act of walking differently while observing differently creates differently. Now, a word of guidance, these rituals are not spells. They're not quick fixes. They are calibrations, technologies of attention. They work when you work them with reverence and repetition. And over time, you'll notice not just subtle improvements, but radical restructurings. People may say you've changed, but they're wrong. You haven't changed. You've chosen a new slit. You've decided to observe a self so aligned, so attuned, so empowered that the universe had no choice but to follow your lead. And as the days pass and these practices become second nature, you will begin to live not in reaction to the world, but in relation to the world you are co-creating. Because here's the final secret, the more precisely you observe a thing, the more defined it becomes. So observe joy, observe power, observe beauty, and they will become your world. You've traveled through perception, pierced the veil of quantum awareness, and stepped into the sacred role you were always meant to play, the observer, the creator, the one who shapes the mist of potential into lived experience. As this journey draws to a close, I invite you to breathe slowly, gently, and look around your world not with the eyes of habit, but with the inner gaze of intention. You now understand that reality isn't something you passively endure, it's something you activate. Each thought you entertain, each emotion you linger on, each lens you choose. These are not minor details. They are the instruments of manifestation. And you, dear soul, are no longer just watching from the sidelines. The timelines have always been there, layered like sheets of transparent film. All it ever took to enter a new one was a shift in how you see. Now, as the echoes of these teachings settle into your bones, let them whisper a simple truth: you have never been powerless. You have always been a participant in the sacred dance of light, shadow, and choice. So take your rituals, your mirror gazes, your walks through the unknown. Carry them with reverence. Observe your life not as a bystander, but as a sculptor mid-creation. Feel the timeline bending. Feel reality responding. Feel yourself arriving finally fully into the version of you that was watching from beyond all along. Please share in the comments where you found this journey most profound. And if you found value in this video, please subscribe so we can continue on the path of awakening together.